Now we will look at converting between fractions, decimals, and percents. So for our first one, we start with the fraction 9 over 16. So we're just going to divide. 9 divided by 16 gives us 0.5625. When you change a decimal to a percent, you move it to the right 2 times, so 56.25%, and don't forget your percent sign. The reason we move it to the right is because we're multiplying by 100. Percent means out of 100. So when you have a decimal, that's already out of 100, so then you have to move it twice to the right, multiply it by 100 to get it into a percent. Now we're going to go backwards. So we're going to start with 84% and move left. So we're going to move left 2 places. There's no decimal, so you need to realize the decimal's at the end of the number. So 0.84 is what you would have as your decimal. If you read this correctly, you would say 84 hundredths. So 84 out of 100. You also can remember that percent means out of 100. So you are writing it out of 100 each time. You then need to simplify it. So you need to find what goes into 84 and 100. That is 4. So if you divide both of them by 4, you get 21 out of 50. So we always reduce our fractions. When we get down to the chart below, we're going to have some repeating ones. So when you have repeating decimals, you write a bar over it, and then when you have to go from a decimal to a fraction, your denominator is always 9. That's something you just have to memorize rather than reading it out loud like we did here. So here's our first one, 9 out of 20. Again, 9 divided by 20 in your calculator, 0.45. Move it to the right twice to get 45%. 5%. The decimal's here, so when you move it left twice, you have to add that 0 in front of the 5. So 0.05. 1, 2. Again, you can think of it as 5 out of 100 for 5%, or you can read that as 5 hundredths, 5 100ths. Both of those, 5 goes into both of those, so your final answer for that fraction is 1 over 20. If you start with a decimal, you just need to go once each way. So for this one, move it to the right twice, 26%. 26 out of 100, or again, you can think 26 hundredths is the way you would write that. 2 is what goes into both of those. 13 over 50 is your final answer. Again, you have to check, is there anything that goes into 13 and 50? Nope, 13 is a prime number, so nothing even goes into 13. 11 out of 28. This one's a little bit different because when we plug it in, we get this really long decimal. So what I want you to do is I want you to always go to 3 numbers after the decimal point. So 1, 2, 3. So now you need to look at the 8. The 8 tells the 2 to move up. So we're going to count over, but then the next one tells us how to round. So the 8 tells the 2 to round up. So we would have 0.393 is what I want you to put for your decimal. Then when we move it twice, we have 39.3%. This next one, 38%. So we start here and move it left twice, 0.38. For the fraction, 38 out of 100. 2 is what goes into both of those. 38 divided by 2 is 19. 100 divided by 2 is 50. So 19 out of 50. Now, when you have a mixed number, so 1 and 1/9, what you want to do is right away 1 and, the and becomes the decimal point. So you're going to carry that whole number right over. 1 and 1/9. So 1 point, and then we just do the 1/9 in our calculator. All right. So that is 0.1 repeating. So 1.1 repeating is what we would write. Anytime you have a repeating decimal, you just put the line over it. Now, what gets a little bit tricky is when you move this twice, 1, 2, up here we had to put a 0 in. These we have to put 1s in because this would keep going. You could write this out with a whole bunch of 1s if you wanted to. So when you move it twice, we're going to write this as 111.1 repeating percent. So you're still going to keep the repeating even with the percent sign. This one we have to be careful with as well. 0.7, when we move it twice, that means 70%. One thing hopefully we know is that half is 50%. So 0.5 changes to 50%. A lot of people accidentally put 7% for this one. 0.7 is bigger than 0.5, so bigger than a half. So this has to be bigger than 50%. Two ways you could go about the decimal. If you think of it as a percent, 70 out of 100, those both can be divided by 10, or you probably learned that means you can just cross off the zeros. So 7 over 10. If you just read this one correctly mathematically, you read it out loud as 7/10. So 7 over 10. Then you don't have to simplify. 4/5. So again, 4 divided by 5 gives us 0.8. Just like we did up here. When you move it twice, you need to add the 0. So 80%. 96%. Start the decimal here, move left, 0.96. 96 out of 100. So again, you need to find what goes into both of them. 4 goes into both of those. We end up with 24 out of 25. Here we're starting with a number over 1. So that means you're going to have over 100%, just like we did up here. All right, so we're going to move it right twice and have 148%. It's okay to have over 100%. When you write it as a fraction, I want you to write it as a mixed number, just like this one. So you're going to write the 1 and then 48 over 100. So you're going to bring your whole number straight over and then 48 out of 100. You can divide those by 4. The 1 stays the same. The whole number needs to stay the same. 48 divided by 4 is 12. 100 divided by 4 is 50. So 1 and 12 over 50. This next one, we have 55.5 repeating percent. So what that means is when we move it over, you just have 5s the whole time. So you can just write 0.5 with a line over the 5. That shows 0.5 repeating. If you want to put a couple of 5s in there and then draw the line, that's fine, but you only need 1. This is the tricky part where, again, you have to go back up here and memorize that the denominator is always 9. So your fraction for 0.5 repeating is simply 5 over 9. That is it. You won't have to simplify that one. This last one, 2.3 repeating. So again, you're going to have over 100%. If it helps you to write out some 3s afterwards, just do that. 233.3 repeating percent. So you still want to keep that repeating line even with the percent. So over here, we're going to do the 2, and then the 3 is repeating, so 3 over 9. You do need to simplify the 3 over 9, so those can both be divided by 3. 2 and 1/3 would be your final answer.